Millie goes on back up to Alabama, as she has been ordered to do with her family. They move to the Muskogee Creek Nation in Alabama. She lives at Tallassee, which was a creek town that is now a town in Alabama. 1836 comes along. By then she's married a Creek warrior. He joins the U.S. Army. The U.S. Army comes in and says, we need Creek warriors to go help us fight the Seminoles down in Florida. They've started war against us. We'll pay you and we'll feed you, you know. And so he signs up for the U.S. Army's Creek force, and he goes south to fight against Osceola and the Seminoles in Florida. He never comes back. He dies of a fever. Millie is left alone with their children. And suddenly troops arrive, and they announce it's time to move west. The Creek people were not expecting this. They were herded into what can only be described as concentration camps. They called them removal encampments. Men, women, and children were herded in there. All the warriors were gone in Florida fighting the Seminoles for the United States when troops arrive and force them out of their homes. The winter is coming. They set off on the long walk to what is now Oklahoma. Millie has her small children with her. She has no warrior with her to help get food or anything else, and has no horse. They can't take their livestock with them. The Army says, we'll pay you the value of your livestock later. It's time to go. She goes overland to Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, we think she got on a steamboat and was taken partially up the Arkansas River until the river got too shallow and the boat couldn't continue, and then they set off on foot again. Newspapers along the way mention the celebrated Millie Francis passed here today, and they will remember this Pocahontas story from long ago. People would give her food because of that, and she later said, people were very kind to me, you know, and gave us food and helped us a little further along the way as we passed. It's a very sad story. Winter comes as they're leaving Little Rock area of Arkansas. They're going up through the Ozark and Ouachita Mountains out there. Ice storms hit. They're wearing moccasins. Their shoes wear out. They're barefoot in the ice and the snow. They have nothing. And they finally reach Oklahoma. They pass through Fort Smith. They take them out to Fort Gibson, which is just outside of what is now Muskogee, Oklahoma. From there, they take them 50 miles out into the prairies, and they gave them, each family got one blanket, and they left them there. They said, good luck to you. You know, hope you like your new home. We don't know how many died along the way, but Millie is out there in the snow and the ice, and I've lived out there. You can get, you know, some serious winter in Oklahoma about January, which is when they arrived out there. They have no home. They have one blanket to cover themselves with to try to stay warm. Millie built a dirt floor, one-room log cabin for herself on a hill just north of Muskogee, what is now Muskogee, Oklahoma. She lived there the rest of her life. Interestingly, she later converted to Christianity. She spoke English reasonably well, and in later times a U.S. Army officer came along, and this Colonel Hitchcock, or Major Hitchcock at that time, came along, and he was investigating frauds that had been perpetrated on the Native Americans out in the nations. And he was talking to a man who ran a trading post there, and the guy said, do you remember Millie Francis, the Pocahontas? And the guy said, yes. And he said, well, she lives just over that hill. And so Hitchcock went over the hill to meet her, and she received him politely. He described her conditions as just deplorable. She's living in this dirt floor, you know, hovel out there. She had come from wealth, and she told him, you know, we were once a very wealthy family, now we have nothing. And she said, most of my children have died, my husband is dead, and, you know, and here I am. And he said that she was very old for her years. You know, she was in her approaching her 40s then, you know, but was already an old woman. He felt such compassion for her that he wrote to the Secretary of War, and he said, we must do something for this woman. She saved the life of an American soldier, and now she's living in misery out here. The Secretary of War referred it to Congress. Congress debated it for a couple of years and finally passed a special appropriation that granted a military pension to Millie and ordered the commissioning of a special Medal of Honor for her. The word gets back to Millie. She expresses her gratitude to the government for this. Unfortunately, it takes another year for the medal and the money to actually get to Oklahoma for her. When it arrives there, the agent to the Muskogee people goes over to her home to visit her, finds her dying of tuberculosis. He said that she expressed gratitude for it, and then she died without ever seeing the medal. She died like within a day or so of receiving the notification that the money had arrived. So it never benefited her in life. What she was owed was passed on to her family. The medal went to her family as well. And Millie today is buried on a hill overlooking Muskogee, Oklahoma. What's really interesting to me is that in Muskogee there is a college. It's called Bacone College. And Bacone College was established primarily for Native American young people to have a place where they could afford to go and get a higher education. Many different organizations support this college. And in the middle of the quad of this college is a stone for Millie Francis. And far away from her home, there's a monument to her there in Muskogee. There's a smaller monument to her in St. Mark's at San Marcos de Apalach. But she's a long way from home out there, but she is with her people. And the people that she could have chosen a more prosperous life by accepting Duncan McCrimmon's offer of marriage and going back to Georgia and living among the whites, but she chose to remain Muskogee, and that's where she is today.